And it's
Yeah.
only because of this great economy and this kind of Korean style that we've learned, oh, if we have, 4 bases to really pump and we don't have any BCs to worry about, we can do great things. But if there are these BCs, we got to worry about the BCs first, which is always going to
Mm.
be corruptors. And we can go back to that Ravager Ling Bling style, but smashing 30 meters into 5 BCs is never going to work out.
Welcome everybody to Rank. We are back again. This is the show where we go a little bit further than the tournament and we go a little bit deeper into what last happened. I'm your host, Drekken, and we're back again with my co-host, Nanman to my left. Always got a reverse camera, remember? And my guest, our guest, Panda Bear Me. Welcome both of you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to be here to be able to talk about some awesome StarCraft today. We got some
Right?
TVZ action.
And I was saying before the show is that, and many of you have brought up, is that we are lacking a lot of Zerg-related point of views on this. And so in the sake of equality for all the races in the StarCraft universe, we've brought Panda Bear Me to help guide us through some Zerg expertise here. And we're going to go through some matches here in Atlanta and break down ZVT Mech and what just happened. And so before we get that, Panda Bear Me, you were at Atlanta, and I wanted to show off a little bit about what your experience was at Atlanta, and what you were kind of feeling from the energy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it came through, but I mean, it was just packed. Like for the player perspective, there was a wait list of I think 20 people were on the list. Seemed like everybody I knew that was playing was like, I signed up, but I couldn't get in. And every game from round of 16 on, it was like people on the floor and watching and stuff. So it was just, it was completely packed. It was a really great time. I enjoyed it a lot. It reminded me a lot of like the early DreamHack Austins that I went to, and I just love those. So super nice energy.
I feel like that's what it should be. I feel like we're back, baby. Like, I feel like we're the Backstreet Boys coming back together as a community and launching our new albums, and everyone's going crazy, that's my feeling. I don't know, Nan, what are you feeling?
No, I agree. I think it's that hype of, okay, we had so many years off of not being able to do the big events like this to like get back and have the crowd there, and it definitely was hyped. I sadly wasn't able to go in person, but now I'm like, I need to go to the next one. Like the next big StarCraft event we're going that gets hosted. I need to make it there.
Anybody going to Katowice?
See, the traveling, that's the only thing. It's like flying across over there. I actually just started flying for the first time like this year, so flying to like Europe and stuff might be a little bit much for me. It's my second flight ever, so in NA, that's my plan. Next big NA event.
Okay, there we go. Qualification of it, of course.
Yeah,
What
right.
about you,
Astra.
Panda? Panda, you gonna go to Katowice at all? Any thoughts on
No. Nah. That's something a couple people from NA's done, but I don't really play as much anymore. Maybe if I was like playing all the time, that'd be like the big push, get the EPT points. I mean, they're just so valuable. You kind of have to do stuff like that. I remember Pilly was like probably one of the first people to do that, to go like to the Katowice and just to get the points, and he actually did like really well. And we're like, oh wait, we could do that. And now you see that in Valencia.
Yeah.
All these NA players are crawling over and just like getting free money, but yeah, not on the cards for me these days. No, unfortunately not.
So tell us a little bit about, we're going to be talking about ZVT and Mech. And why don't you give us like an overview of what that looks like for the typical Zerg player?
This is a little bit of an interesting tournament because, Mech usually is, you think like for Zerg, it's like roaches, ravagers, maybe we get some swarmos, maybe we get some lurkers, but the idea is like a roach space kind of thing. And in Korea, you've kind of seen these muta plays pop up every now and then, and that's super emphasized here because now in 2022, it's like super developed. They know all the situations they can go muta from, and it really is a Korean style. I think it's popped up over the years in like the EPTs and stuff, but it's so apparent that it's just the way to play. And all these games show you like super different scenarios in which you can get there. And I think like Mech is on the menu for these replays. So we're gonna see a lot of ways Koreans approach Mech. So it's super cool actually.
I kind of thought Mech was out of style, so I didn't realize when it had come back. I don't know why. It just to me, and this is maybe my Protoss brain talking, is that I just thought Mech had just fallen out and that we weren't doing Mech anymore. So when did it become a problem for Zerg?
Well, Mech's always kind of been like something that's propped up every now and then. I wouldn't say it's like the style right now.
No,
because I think overall the games, like it maybe popped up like once every series at most. Most of the time, I think it was a small portion, but the games that did come up, it's one of those things where it's like if you don't know, you're like, man, I can't find any games, and then you're just like, how do I beat? And you're just dying constantly. You ever have that where it's like everyone already figured it out, and you're left behind, and you're like, gosh, I wish someone would do it so I could know. And this is one of those times where it's like it finally, it came up, and it's like a situation that makes sense, and it's like just really good play. So these replays are really nice just for that. So I wouldn't say it's the meta, but it's always something that comes up every now and then, and it's just like you gotta know how to deal with it.
Yeah, man. Anything's for you on thought on Mech? Like, have you've played, you Zerg a bit? What does Mech fall for you?
I mean, Mech can be really scary. Like it's the mindset for fighting against it is a little different. Like if you're fighting against bio, you can expect lots of drops and harassments, and you've got to be kind of multitasking. Where the harassment orient that you have to fight against is different now when you're fighting against Mech. So I think that's interesting. It's kind of the pathways that Terran can take to kind of try to punish Zerg players is going to be different. So it's going to be interesting to see like how Zerg players kind of respond to that. And Penberry, you were talking about how like mutas seem to be kind of the go-to, at least that Korean style is kind of picked up as saying, hey, this is one of the strongest ways to deal with it instead of that kind of Roach Ravager. Do you feel like that's more of a map dependency thing, or just like this is just better, we should just be doing this instead of Roach Ravager?
I think there's a lot of factors. I think like on the smallest maps, mutas become really problematic to get out, but it's kind of the situation where if you have a really good economy, you can always kind of just get there with mutas. So it's really those low econ situations where you're worried about whether you want to go mutas or not more than the map, because even if you're on the smallest maps in these pools, if you have like that clean 66 drones, you're just like, well, we can go mutas here, because all the bases are free at that point. You guys are Protoss players. If Zerg gets 3 base economy right away, it's like 4th and 5th are a gimme. We got those on lock. So it's all about those first 3 bases. And yeah, it's one of those situations where it's funny because now Korean Zerg especially are escalating to these mutas because they're getting such good economy. So you'll see in these games, you gotta look out for the Mech games because they're really aggressive in the beginning, and they're all kind of tipped off by these really aggressive openers, like emphasizing those factories and those starports, and even getting extras. And then they go into the Mech, and because you just can't simply just go Mech anymore. Now it's like you have to really put in a lot of damage, and then you go Mech, and then off of the back of that damage, you can get into the mid game because stuff like mutas, if you get that good economy, is just so good. So
it feels like, and we're just gonna jump in the game in a second, is that Zerg is like Terran is being very aggressive against when they're going Mech. It feels like it's a very aggressive Terran play. Like they have to be, and you said this in a second, but like I feel like almost bullying. You have to bully the Zerg a bit for them to get it out. Right, and
they deserve it too. Yeah, just definitely the bad guys in this situation. Yeah, it's insane.
All right, well, why don't we jump into our first game, Maru versus Solar.
Yeah, Maru versus Solar, super classic game, right? Like we see this all the time in the GSL, and we got this in Atlanta. It's just like insane to think about.
Now, I saw that Tropical Sacrifice was really good for Mech. Like this was, I'm not 100% sure why, but I've heard that it is a really good map for Mech.
Yeah, just that 4 base layout all on the high ground is just super nice. And then even the 5th base, it's like if you look at the triangle, you get that base just on the low ground of it. It's just like, it's just a gimme. And that's the biggest problem for Mech is getting these bases down, because everything just falls apart so quickly. So you just need that really tight core base setup. Hopefully, if you're lucky into 5th, and that's kind of what this map does for you, is you get that nice 5th base setup, and by then you're thinking about like supreme late game, you know.
So players, if you're on like Tropical Sacrifice, you got to watch out for, you know, like mech. Is that now something people gonna run into the ladder? Like I feel like, how likely are we gonna run into that in the ladder in this kind of space?
What, the like mech kind of stuff?
Yeah.
There's a fair amount, and especially with this build. I mean, okay, already look at this. Like, we got to emphasize, like Maru's opener, already so aggressive, going onto 2 factories before the starport, and we have Blue Flame Hellions here in the main base, and it's just like, I haven't seen a Blue Flame Hellion build in, gosh, I don't know how long, but it's builds like these that are going to get you into the mid game that you need with mech. And now, from Solar's perspective, he's actually doing great scouting right now. You can see if you go from Solar's POV, he's seeing the front of the base and he's seeing these depots. That might seem like nothing at all, seeing a couple extra depots, but what it's actually telling him is that this is some kind of 2 base oriented play, because normally if you had a 3rd CC, you wouldn't want to make depots that quickly. And it's kind of a situation where, you know, it's like a big depot where it's like a 3rd CC early on. It's kind of funny how that works, but it ends up being this big depot. But at the same time, Zerg, or Terran rather, needs to wall. So you're always going to be able to see these depots at front. So Solar actually scouting for these extra depots, making sure this is some kind of 2 base play. And he's getting a ton of queens. And this is the name of the game, as we all know, for Zergs. Just getting those queens out, and it just defends everything, right? And if you really need, you add a Bailey Nest or a Roach Warren, but Solar is just so clinical the way he plays this early game. It's just amazing.
So he walled off here with all the depots, and so what is kind of like the Zerg's natural response to that then?
Yeah, now look at that. So he gets the confirmation with the Zergling, sees all the depots, puts down a Roach Warren right away. Like there's just no point in not, but Maru is just so quick. I mean, it happened like too quick. Let me let me rewind. That was like insane. He just comes in with the Hellions. He's been hiding it this whole time. Reveals he has the 2nd factory, and not only that, they're Blue Flame, right? Solar only has Queen Ling coming in here. His economy is fantastic, but he just like needs to hold, right? Queen holds the main base right in the center. They can't get through. Drones come back. He has so many queens that he's actually it's like a wall in his natural base. Maru has to get out. Evo blocks the top. Drones go out the little cubby, and it's just like, look at that, 3 drones. Like, of course, roaches are on the way. He wanted the roaches for the defense, but like he just clutched it. Like he's just built different, you know. And
there's a lot of damage that gets done, right? There's a lot of damage that gets done here.
If this was anyone else, there would have been a lot of damage that got done, but it ended up being like 5 drones lost.
5 drones lost. Insane. Like really great control for Solar with the queens to like get them in, like you said, and kind of block off that natural and just kind of prevent those Hellions from doing all that damage they wanted to do. Like, yeah, like you said, any other player would have lost so many drones in that position and just kind of been screwed over. But like,
Solar, I mean, like, I was gonna say, like, I'm thinking, like, if you're on the ladder and someone comes into your ladder, like, you know, someone comes in with Blue Flame, you're losing a lot. I'm feeling like you're losing a lot.
100%. And look at that, there's 2 Banshees coming in after that, the Cloak Banshees, instantly threw it off. You might not even notice the Banshees if I didn't mention anything, because it's just, he just, like,
actually, I didn't, they ended up running away back. But
yeah, now they're back at the main base.
Hyperflight Rotors. Is that Hyperflight Rotors? Yeah, that looks like Hyperflight Rotors. That feels rare.
I can't believe you know the name of that. You're insane. How did you read that off? You're faking it. There's no way he looked at the icon and said, that's Hyperflight Rotors. I never said that before.
It's a rare item. It's a rare icon. Hyperflight Rotors.
It's so rare. I mean, so fast that I've never even said the name of it. I've just said that speed stuff that makes me hurt.
I'll say that I'll give it like a little bit of preview. It's like I run the Pro Bots tournament, and the bots end up using that a lot for whatever reason. So
okay, the bot meta, sure.
The bot meta is the bot meta is different than human meta.
That makes sense.
So they'll use they'll use stuff like that a lot. So
Yeah, I forgot about the bot meta. Excuse me. Okay.
So this is really interesting that like Solar just kind of like shoves a wave of roaches in there, kind of like trades off a lot of these ground forces, but it's all just like, hey, I've got a huge wave of mutas kind of sneaking behind this that are about to pop out, and Maru has no real anti-air.
Yeah, let me re-emphasize this because this is actually huge situation because he goes Spire out of this, and it's a situation where actually, can I pause real quick here?
Yeah, of course.
Just, like this moment, actually, I want to kind of get to when the Spire was coming up because it's a situation where he knows it's Mech coming into this. This is just a situation where he just held the Hellions. The Banshees are just coming in, but he's already got the supports. He's completely fine. And he knows that it's Mech. I mean, we all saw the Blue Flame Hellions. If it was Bio, it wouldn't matter because it's just so behind its typical timing that we don't even have to react to it. That's how it works in StarCraft. If something is so bad, we don't even consider it because we'll just auto defend it. So we're totally thinking Mech right now. And what's like the classic cornerstone of every Mech build? It's BCs by far. Especially nowadays, like you can't catch a Mech game without a BC unless there's some insane opener like this exact thing where it's like Blue Flame Hellions into Banshees. So he's thinking if there's BCs, we'll go Corruptors. It's fine. We'll go Roach Corruptor, tried and true. But if there's no BCs, we'll go Muta. And we have such a great economy. I mean, he droned up like crazy that entire time and lost 5 drones. He ended up making the roaches and stuff, but he was just totally gunning into that 3 base economy, and there was no reason for Solar not to go mutas because if he keeps up this economy and takes no damage from here on, which he's set up to do, he'll just go straight into mutas and just overwhelm his opponent, which as we kind of saw here, it just Banshees get shoot away at the 3rd, going back, and Maru just doesn't get anything done. And
for someone who might be a little bit less inclined, what is for you the confirmation that it is Mech and not just, is it the Blue Flame? Are we talking about the Banshees? Like what says that this person's committing to Mech?
Yeah, like the Blue Flame especially just screams Mech to me. I think Banshees can be a hint sometimes, but the Blue Flame is just such a clear committal to the factory that even if he swapped out and he got like, immediately after going barracks and then reacting at a bunch of barracks, it would be just so slow that it wouldn't even matter, right? It's just such a slow timing. The stim is just excruciating slow. The medevacs would get out before the stim even finished even. So it's one of those situations where like if he comes in with these roaches, which in a way you could say these roaches are another confirmation that it's Mech, even if he saw Bio right now, he'd be like, great, I'm already going mutas. And I got Lings. I can get a Baneling Nest, that's no problem. Because me getting a reactive Baneling Nest is still going to be in time for your stem, right?
Right.
And in this case, it's even better because we see how it's going. It's these speed Banshees. And I don't even remember the upgrade you just said. I don't remember it.
Flight rotors.
Please stop saying that name. It's so gross. Oh god! But yeah, he just goes past those hyper-flighted Banshees, and it's just a total massacre.
Massacre, 100%. I mean, it's like Maru tried to get in and see some information, but he never saw the Spire. He even scanned the natural. He was in the main base of the Banshees. So they just show up, and it's like, I have no missile turrets. I've got Cyclones to deal with Banshees, and that's going to do nothing. Like, he's, like, poking away at them, but, yeah, nothing. So it's like he didn't even have a chance, really, to respond, but the way that you laid it out there was like, it makes perfect sense that mutas would be the follow-up here.
Yeah, just such an aggressive option, such a, very Korean-esque, right? Like always, if you can kill them immediately, we will. And it's just like, it's very classic Solar play too. Like, love to see it, especially like going with the roaches as a follow-up, and it's just game over from here, right?
I do, and I think I want to just piggyback off of Nan's point there, is that I didn't realize how versatile they could be. That, like you mentioned, that you could cover not only Bio in this situation, but you could also pin down for Mech, or at least prepare that transition. And together with the roaches, they did a ton. Like obviously, they ended the game. So where could that go wrong? Where do you think that could go wrong, though? Like, playing it
For
out a different
solar,
way.
that blue from Hellion run by for the first half would have definitely been a great way for that to go wrong. That's kind of how crazy solar is, right? He did his due diligence and scouted, but the Roach Horn was a little bit late because Maru's build was just that tight. But he kind of just held anyways. And this is also like a tribute to Queens and why they're so disgustingly good. But it's also just like solar just being on point, like at every turn, like getting the queen on the main ramp, having like this wall of queens in the natural, forcing him to go to the third, but then just slips out. Like it's just like insane to watch. And Maru gave every opportunity to get himself back in the game. The Banshee run by again. Even when the beaters were coming across the map, there was like 6 speed Banshees with those rotors or whatever you guys keep calling them. And that would have been a great opportunity to get harassed in there. But time and time Solar just stopped it. And you could say in some ways the muta play just kind of auto countered the speed Banshees.
Yeah.
But it really was on the back of all that damage that he just thwarted back to back to back.
He had that strong economy that allowed him to just be like, okay, cool, you didn't do anything in all of these attacks. I've got such a strong economy. I'll just pump it into these mutas and go. I mean, I guess there could have been like maybe a bad angle, like with a Widow Mine or something like that could have blasted. But because he sent those roaches in before to kind of get that 100% confirmation, it's like, I know I'm safe to now send the mutas in.
Exactly. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself, man. You're
break down some analysis for everybody.
Even though you did that rotor stuff, you're all right, man.
I brought up the rotors. No point.
Okay, well, yeah, this Drek guy's bad influence. You gotta watch out for this guy. I think
one of the things too is is it important to hide the spire? Is it like how
it doesn't hurt, right? I think having the little cheeky spire in the back is always nice. I think, definitely if Maru knew there was a spire in the back, he would have definitely transitioned out of those rotor Banshees way quicker, and it would have been a slightly different game. But the damage had already been done. I guess the lack of damage, you could say, from Maru's perspective, and it was kind of already this momentum where, maybe if he doesn't make any of those Banshees Right, he'll only get at least 2 of them out, but those additional Banshees and that upgrade, maybe he could hold, right? He could get the middle turrets out and get a solid 4 base, but Zerg from there can just like jump into this 80 drone economy, and now we're talking 5th base, and now we're just taking the whole map, and we definitely have a great game to play for someone like Solar. But in this game, we have Maru, but now we got a little DRG action.
Yeah, Maru versus DRG. And one of I chose this game for us to kind of highlight because I thought it would be an interesting kind of way to see Mech from the BCs. Like, there comes to be a strong BC opener here. That
I'd say the more traditional opening for Mech players too is that I'm going to start with the BCs kind of thing instead of the Blue Flame Hellions that we saw last time. Like Panda, you were talking about how it's not a very common thing, but Maru had that so mapped out that against another player they would have died or taken so much damage. But this is the kind of, I would say, more traditional style if you're opening up with Mech. At least the stuff that I've seen. I don't know. You might be able to speak for it a little bit more from your perspective, Panda.
No, for sure. I mean, BCs are like the flagship, like Terran unit for Mech for sure. But we'll see. Kind of, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but as we go through this game, we kind of see that Maru puts it on gas because it's BCs, but then it'll be 2-port, right? And it's like, and for Terrans, this might be a familiar story where, we'd already know that if we're gonna make Mech work, we got to do something a little bit extra spicy, a little bit different than usual. But if you don't know, you're definitely going to see a lot of that where it's just like we got to emphasize our tools and really dig deep into here. And already we see Maru in the natural base get a 3rd gas because we got a 2nd port in the map back at the main base and getting the Viking out for first just to stop that Overlord that is conveniently placed in the back of the net. He already knows. It's all tricks from here because like you said, BCs are like the standard back opener, but we're going a little bit more than usual. This is not your typical BC opener.
Yeah, spicing it up. Like the normal stuff that we're expecting to see, like the poking and prodding. Hey, let's see if I can get in and get something done. There's queens that are already kind of getting built up. But DRG is like, you know what? I'm going to be getting the Baneling Nest up here. He knows that there's kind of going to be the lings that will be needed to help him against kind of the Hellion harassment, because, hey, why would you not be putting some Hellions out, stop some creep, do that normal stuff and scout around? But, you know, the Liberator coming in is a little bit surprising, I think, catching him off guard a little bit here.
Yeah, and look at the way DRG's just like going through this game. Like the Ling patrolling outside his natural. He already checked the depots. He too, like the first game from Solar, knows that this is something 2-base. And Maru's kind of done this like tricky Liberator stuff, because you don't really expect Liberators when you think 2-base, but he's kind of pulled this out first before he brings out the BCs. But he's kind of doing his due diligence in a lot of ways. He's got the spores at every single base because of it. He's got the Baneling Nest. He actually pretty safely put down a Baneling Nest. Not leaning on that Roach Warren like Solar ended up doing. It's kind of a stylistic difference, but making an idea of like, I need to get some tech. And he did get that like fairly early on. And now we just see the BCs going in the main base, and it's just like, why is there 2? Well, wait a second. What is going on right now? And immediately puts down the Spire, and he's just trying to make a salvage of the situation. The Hellions get thwarted off by the Lings at the bottom, but the BCs end up being the emphasis, because while Hellions are great run by while there's BCs in the main, if there's
We're in
2,
trouble.
maybe we don't even need them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can just see this back and forth. This is the kind of the weakness of the triangle base. You can see here going from the 3rd to the main. Usually people go line bases because of this. That's what he ended up taking as 4th base. And it's just kind of like this huge problem, because now he can't chase. Maru will always be able to go away, and he might even be able to also attack somewhere else while running away. So this is just like a super awkward position for DRG already, like 22 drones down. You can see in the main base, he's trying to like do damage with these Lings because he killed all those Hellions, but it's like this really scrappy game just so quickly. And this is where Mech thrives.
So let's kind of talk about that real quick. DRG opted for that, like, I'm going to utilize the Lings that I have. I'm going to make some Banelings. I'll bust down that wall that you made and try to get in and do some damage. But he wasn't really able to do much damage with it.
Can we go back a
little bit? Yeah, I was thinking that too. Yeah, because let's just look at the Lings perspectives. Just like actually, I want to get, if we didn't catch the Hellions getting caught in there, because I was so focused on the BCs, probably missed it. The Hellions are just kind of in the middle here, and then as the teleport happened in the main, you can see the Hellions here. They're clearing creep, and then they go straight for the 3rd. But DRG was actually totally on point for this. As soon as he went up the ramp, he went down the ramp. That's the classic. And they just get cleaned up. And then as he kind of comes by, I think this probably wasn't planned, but he realized, like, wait, if I have all these Lings and he has all this air, we got to make something happen here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as Nanman mentioned, the 9 Banelings just going in. And it's a great maneuver if you're ever, like, seeing this imbalance of, like, I have a lot of ground, they have a lot of air, let's take advantage of it. Because he gets the most of it for sure.
But you still have these BCs roaming around to contest with at this point. Yeah, he's getting some damage, and they can just teleport back. I'm just wondering, and I missed it because I was kind of observing, but where was it that DRG didn't get the chance to see these BCs? Like, why was it such a surprise for? Yeah,
let's kind of emphasize kind of honestly the brilliance in Maru's build, and kind of talk about what Maru or DRG rather could be thinking, because already in the beginning of the game, this is when the 2 ports came out. First unit is the Viking, and it just kills the only Overlord on the map. Mm-hmm. And already, like, you can see he's pulling back like some of his OVs because he kind of knows he can't be too far out now there's a problem, and we can't do Overlords anymore. Most Zergs these days at a high level are very good at just using Lings, and DRG is absolutely no exception. So he's been kind of scouting the front. He already knows that it's something 2-base because he's seen the depots from his perspective. But kind of throughout this, you'll see kind of these pokes and prods. But by default, we're getting the Baneling Nest. We're getting 3 spores, and that's 100% because of these depots, because he knows it's something tech based.
He knows something's happening, and but he just doesn't know what. And this is where we're in problems right now, is because now, could we say fairly the fact that he lost the OV to the Viking and being denied that information really sent this in the direction that we're looking? Because right now he has this lane going back and forth, but he's waiting for that information to come to him, and there's like not much he can do.
Right, we know something's happening, we just don't know exactly what's happening. That's why we kind of have like this erratic, like 3 spores and also all the lings. Like we have a lot of lings. By the time these Hellions came up, he had more than enough slings, and it was kind of funny how that, if you think about a factory pumping, like it was like 6, almost 7 minutes by the time it came in. That's he was very prepared for something to happen. It just happened to be a little bit more air focused than he thought, because it wasn't 1 but 2 of the BCs, and he TP'd in, so it's a little bit quicker than you normally see, because sometimes people will just walk it down, or fly it rather. So yeah, we have this like kind of feeling of DRG knowing something's happening but couldn't quite get there because of that Viking denial, and it just wasn't quite enough.
What are our options then? Like, what if we're like, let's say we're in a DRG position? What are our options?
That's a great question. I mean, there are like different styles you can get to like have better times versus this. Like Overlord speed is great versus this. Something as extreme as 2-port BC like needs like the same kind of like extreme response in the other direction, right? If it's going to be so extreme into aggressive 2-port BCs, I mean, how many times have you seen 2-ports BCs? We're going to need the same, power in the other direction in degrees of safety of like, we're getting Overlord speed. Maybe we're just going roaches by default. That's what Solar was going to do, is he was just going to put down a roach warren and then see what's going on. In this case, it was more like air focus with the double port BCs, where what he really needed to do, if he like knew what was going on right away, is he would have had to keep making queens the entire time, which might seem crazy because he's actually got 9 queens, but just because of how much power like ramps up, as we saw, he really needed a little bit more. And then we're talking about like maybe we put double spores in the main so we don't have to worry about it as much, and then we can lean on the 3rd base, right? Because as we see here, when the BCs come in, he immediately puts down a Spire because that's the only way he can defend this. But then he also like reroutes his spore to the main, so he has 2 spores in the main, and he already kind of is trying to get this setup of this 2 spore, and then queens kind of cover the other base. But it's like, also he's using his nat spore and the libs bullying him, so it's like really gross, because he's like, also if you look in the nat, like he's also getting bullied by this liberator, and it's like the liberator actually is like kind of this weird like hero in this, that he gets like 15 kills now.
That's insane.
And it's just so much to deal with. This is like Maru is like, if you don't have 200 APM consistently, if you go 1 in 99 for 1 second, you lose 15.
You're getting bullied. Like, that's what's happening to you.
Yeah, it's at this level, it really is a performance thing. But as far as gameplay, like build order and stuff like that, I would have been a fan personally of taking the line base. I kind of mentioned that before. You can see like horizontally to the natural, there's his 4th base, and if he had that set up instead of this kind of triangle between all 3, he wouldn't have had this kind of bounce back and forth thing. But I mean, right, he still lost a lot to the Liberator, and there's all these little things happening. But it would have been a little better. Those are like preference things at this point, but that's something I would mention if I was like in a coaching session, right? Something about how you take your bases and thinking about what you want to lean on as a player.
Legit. I think that, do we feel like I feel like we've done a good cover of this. I feel like we've gotten a really good 360 view of how that goes.
I think
Yeah,
so.
for
I mean,
sure.
because again, it was like playing in the dark. It's just like minor tweaks and preferences and base functioning, and you need those extreme responses to an extreme build order. Like it makes sense to me. And hopefully the audience and people watching, can take away some tips and tricks for that one, because that again is an extreme thing, because it's not normally that you're going to see 2-port battlecruiser coming out. Like there was a Liberator already dealing damage that continued to do damage during that whole thing. So that's going to be the extreme end. You're not always going to be fighting that style of battlecruiser opening. So.
For sure. And this was I kind of alluded to this in the beginning, is that this is the name of the game with Mech now, is like these really insanely aggressive, or maybe just like insanely greedy, just kind of something in some direction kind of styles, because Mech just on its own just isn't enough to get in the mid game. And so you get these really aggressive styles, and sometimes you just win off of the back of it, which, I'm sure a lot of Mech players are like writing these down, like, oh man, I'm gonna get so many points.
Hey, you
This
totally
is
use
what
this
I
in
need
the
to
reverse.
do.
Yeah, I just make two extra like production buildings. That's all I had to do. Okay, well, I'm just gonna do that for the rest of my games. But no,
then why
yeah,
wouldn't you?
it's the way in the game. Yeah, right. I don't know why.
Why wouldn't
I'd be
you?
doing that.
Free MMR right there. All right, why don't we? So we'll jump into our last game for the episode, which is DRG versus Cure.
Yeah, so
This is
familiar
Stargazer.
Yeah.
Stargazer.
Yeah, a little bit more defensive, right? We got like this pocket base in like the back, or I guess it's kind of the front, the way this map's laid out, but it ends up being like this really nice like 3-base setup, like very good for Terran. As we all know, Zerg gets their bases for free because they're broken, but like Terran, they got to work for those bases, right? So it's like this is a great map for Cure, and like even going like CC first, like come on, man, like give me a break. What is this guy doing? Like, you're already getting the third one for free. Now you got to do this too. It's just like the Korean meta just goes so deep, and the CC first meta coming back in Korea, I think, is really cool. I don't know how much you guys have seen it, but it's really nice to see.
I feel like you wouldn't see CC first on ladder. Like I feel like you just get killed if you did it first. But I don't know how true that is.
It's one of those things where it's like you really have to blind counter it, so it's kind of like it goes full circle, right? It's like as soon as you start saying that, people stop doing it, and it's like this weird circular
falls out for a little bit and then comes back when people stop countering. Yeah, it's just love it.
Yeah,
love to see it.
It's funny how that works, but I want to emphasize already, like the way DRG's playing this game is he's going 4 queens right off the bat. So normally you get like just the one here, but he's actually gonna go for more of a 2-base tack, because he knows it's the 3cc kind of map, and he knows what those kind of weaknesses come up to, which is if he goes into this kind of 2-base play, he can really start poking holes in it. So he actually kills the Reaper right away, and he barely sees the fact that it is a lair in the main base. If you look at Cure's POV, it's like almost unfortunate, but also like DRG has so many options. Like from Cure's perspective, he's going 3cc, he's got the port on the way. He's like, man, do I really want to commit to a BC, or what am I going to do? Because that could be a Nidus, that could be Mutas. I mean, if this is me or Micah, we might even be talking about Hydralisk right now, but I don't think we're going to be seeing that anything like that. But in this case, it is the mutas, right? We're going for mutas. We got the Bane of the Nest kind of coming through, and it's like this really clean way to go into 2-base tech. And this game is kind of funny because we're already thinking about mutas before we even know that it's mech. This is kind of like we get caught going mutas, but then we're going to figure out how we're going to go, from there, the situation. Because now it's actually... Cure was thinking about going Banshees, but he decides to go BCs because he kind of realizes that this is kind of a 2-base muta kind of situation. So a lot of reacting on both sides, and it's like you might think, all right, DRG, am I going to go Corruptors, or do I still stick with the mutas? And that's kind of a funny situation.
Why the mutas right away? Like he went into the mutas without really knowing it was mech. Was that just the stylistic, or is that now he's obviously confirmed he sees the BC? What was the kind of the design there? Other than, I guess for context, I know the game prior to this, he actually did Mutiling Bane, the game right before this one. But I don't know if that has an effect on why he decides just to go Muta again.
Yeah, I mean, DRG, like, definitely a Muta player. Like, this guy's like a Wings player at heart, right? Like, these guys just love playing Mutas. Now they're even better because they heal. He's like, oh my god, he comes back from the military, like, they're heal now? No, it hasn't been that long. But, it's just better and better than it's ever been. And 2-base Muta is a great style for, like, these 3cc, like, Banshee kind of builds, especially into Bio, because just, like, the medevacs and the Marines get out so slowly that you can really just start running them over. And that's kind of where you see the hesitation from Cure. He actually started a Banshee and then went into BCs ultimately because he knew that he'd kind of get run over. And in some ways, you might say, like, this mech is kind of forced because he's like, oh man, I got this port and I really need to, like, I need to get this going. Yeah. So these BCs end up being this kind of weird turret. Like, really, he hasn't done anything with these BCs. He's just kind of defending himself. And now finally he's like starting to creep out because he knows I got a gazillion turrets and these mines all around the map, and he's just now able to breathe because these mutas represent so much, like, space, and space is really the name of the game. He sacrificed so much economy for the space in terms of the air, just getting the entire map. And look at the drones. We got 84 drones from DRG. He's gotten so much room for himself. And now think about all these games that we've had so far. We've had great economy, 3-base economy into mutas because we had the economy. This one, kind of a reverse situation. We had mutas and we got a lot of space just because of the way Cure played it out. He went to BCs, which allowed DRG to get into the economy that he wanted anyways. Instead of it being a really aggressive 2-base muta, just forced the turrets and just waited. He maybe killed, like, 4 SCVs, and he didn't even need to do anything. Cure did all the damage to himself just with those turrets.
One thing I noticed, it's a very turtle strategy compared to the last couple of games where the Terran player is the aggressor, where Cure's like, I'm throwing turrets everywhere, I'm throwing Widow Mines everywhere, I'm just going to sit back here, and DRG's like, sweet, I'm just going to expand out and just keep an eye on everything going on.
Sure. I actually thought it was interesting because I didn't even notice it when I was watching it too, is that he ended up using the BCs like turrets, like they were patrolling, right, making sure that nothing's coming in. A little cheeky little mining going on here. I don't know.
Yeah, we got a little cheeky mine on this little path. This in base is about to become a front base when he's done with them. But yeah, like that. This is the first time we saw BCs come out at the bottom base, but now they've already teleported back, and now they've had to. Yeah, instantly he's being defensive just because DRG's got so much control. And yeah, like the difference in these games is stark. Maybe you could reference this as more of like a Maru versus Cure kind of difference, but I also think it's like a DRG just like playing this a lot differently and kind of forcing him to be stuck in his hole. And this is just like, oh my god, the corruptors are just going in for the BCs because as BCs ramp up, they're very, very good versus mutas. So you got to get those corruptors in here. And we see this kind of corruptor ravager style that I think people will be more familiar with. That's just like so strong. It's just like the tried and true style.
I still kind of maybe not even lost, but confused, because like I know that like I feel like the mutas were key to us getting to this point. As Nan pointed out, in the other games we've seen, Terran is the aggressor. They're holding the fort. They're coming for Zerg's number. But in this way, and it could just be down to style, like you'd brought up, is that DRG held, like he was the aggressor. DRG was the one pushing the game, even though Mech wasn't coming onto the field. Even though we did get earlier BCs, DRG set the tempo. And I feel like my instinct says it was the mutas that ultimately put that position, because we didn't, he didn't have any information. We saw that what his scout information back then, wasn't enough to kind of make the idea of mutas. So I don't know. Am I making the right path? Am I getting this non-Zerg life coming to these conclusions, or what do you think?
No, for sure. Yeah, right on the nail on the head on that one. Because like the mutas, yeah, I should actually, I kind of want to go back here and just like
Yeah,
really
let's do it.
emphasize
Mhm.
this situation because there's so much happens so quickly, and it's like there's too much happening. Oh my god, even right now, like he's just like in his base, just like attacking him, and it's just yeah. So like this is actually perfect. The mutas are just about to come out the spires here. The BC's like right now it's coming out, and so this is a situation where um, DRG doesn't want to go corruptors right away. He doesn't want to go two base corruptor and just be stuck on it. So he wants to get those mutas out to force the mutas or force turrets rather, and just really get Cure like bunkered in. In a lot of ways, he does. He's already got like the mines out, and he's already thinking, I'm going to keep this BC home until I'm safe, and kind of hold these in between spots. Because DRG immediately, this is the only time DRG actually starts attacking with mutas, is immediately when they spawn. That's the most strongest point mutas will ever be is right when they come out, and just hot and fresh, like little
Like a
baked
Krispy Kreme
loaves.
donut, like a just right out, right out of the oven.
Right when they open, yeah, it's just I'm the first in line. And from there on, he doesn't really do anything with the mutas. They're kind of just like this representation of what could be, you know. And Cure has to respect that. He has to assume that there's more mutas, but in reality, he's actually already going roaches, right?
It's the fear factor, right? He
Right,
throws
it's
it
a
like,
looming threat.
yeah. I'm starting to see the picture now. I'm starting to see the picture. Is that, you know, the mutas in many way represent. Like I said, I love the way you use the word represents. Represent what could go where we could go. And he just essentially puts Kira in a space where he's like, oh crap, I wasn't expecting that.
But let me emphasize something too, because this is something where I think these games have all kind of gone this really funny way where we've avoided the subject of like betas and PCs don't work well together. This is actually a really funny situation that we're in, that there's mutas and BCs happening, and it's because TRG was planning to go mutas so far ahead. There was like, you know, like they came out at the same time practically, and it was to the point where TRG got them out so early that he couldn't just go corruptors right away because they were so early, and you know all the things that we mentioned representing the, you know, the different things forcing the turrets. But now we got this great economy, 85 drones, just top down bases, low loaded with all gas geysers, all the drones and gas geysers, and we're making corruptors now. And I think people will look at that and be like, well, we already got the mutas going. Why aren't we
Yeah.
keeping up the mutas? And it's because these BCs, as they start ramping up, we got 1, 2, we're getting the third. And as they start ramping up, BCs are very, very good versus mutas. And BCs scale so much more than mutas in these battles that you absolutely need corruptors to help you. And there's a world where you make corruptors and you wipe out the BC numbers and then you go back into mutas.
Yeah.
But there's a reason that Corruptor, Ravager, and then getting that Ling Bling is such a staple in ZVT Mech now. And it's because when BC openers were the name of the game, Corruptors were the way to deal with it. And it's only because of this great economy and this kind of Korean style that we've learned, oh, if we have, you know, 4 bases to really pump and we don't have any BCs to worry about, we can do great things. But if there are these BCs, we got to worry about the BCs first, which is always going to be corruptors. And we can go back to that Ravager Ling Bling style, but smashing 30 meters into 5 BCs is never going to work out. We've tried. Trust me, our best men have been put on that task. So it's no coincidence that he goes back into this roach style when he sees these BCs, and it's just it's a natural kind of order. So definitely don't think mutas are going to be really good versus BCs just because, you know, these games, like the Maru game was like this Banshee Cyclone kind of thing, you know. In the second game, he kind of couldn't even get a response out because he died so quickly. But this game is very clear. You can see the decision making of, okay, he's getting too many BCs out. Now we go to the Corruptors. And it's really the best game to explain how to approach Mech as a Zerg player, because you're seeing all the evolution of like, okay, he's got these units, now I'm going to switch into this. And that's really where like, that's like the classic Zerg, right? Like if we were writing a fanfic of like Zerg style, it'd be like, oh, we're reacting to every single stage of the game. And that's like literally what this is.
I'm a
I
big
think
fan of that.
Yeah, I was like, that's a great breakdown of like talking about, responding to what your opponent's doing, especially Cure, who was so turtled in and allowed DRG to just be able to tech up and make those ebbs and flows and how he could approach it. And, I mean, this like sneak into the base kind of thing is also a great reaction to, having that vision and keeping track of that little corner of the map, something that, Cure couldn't really do and prevent DRG from being aware of that little like vulnerability essentially too. Like he had most of his forces like up at the natural, with the exception of those BCs. And the moment those BCs went across to finally harass, now that he got a decent number, it's like, sweet, now I know you're not there. I can go in and kind of punch a hole in this vulnerability that you've kind of created in your defenses.
DRG's so cool, man.
Yeah, 100%.
One thing I wanted to kind of even wonder about is like the whole picking the minerals from the spot. Like, I feel like I don't see that a lot, or maybe I'm just not paying attention. Is that something that we're seeing more now these days? Just grabbing all these minerals to just come in from a back door? Like, obviously, it is a viable thing, but what's the...
I haven't. I mean, that's why it's so cool. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been. I mean, I'm maybe not on the pulse as much as I might have been on these pro games, but I have not seen that ever. Like, I think it's just so cool. That's why I was saying, like, a DRG is just so cool, man, because it's just no one's doing stuff like that. But it makes so much sense. Like, he's really in this like defensive position, and Cure has every right to be, because he's got this like pocket base, and he just opens it up, and now we're in this situation on this top side of the map, and it's just like, this is so cool. This is the only way it could have happened.
It seems like the best way, actually. I thought that's why, when I brought this game up, I thought it would be really fun to use it, because I felt like there was so much, like there's so many ways to interpret how this went. But the main thing I loved about this was the idea, based different from the other replays we've seen, how Zerg here creates the aggression. They're creating the aggression over Terran, even though they're going BCs, going Mech. The bullying comes full circle. Circle of life.
Yeah, really closes the bookends it off after getting bullied for so many games. Finally takes it to him, killing those evil Terrans. Yeah, you're right. This is like the tactic steals the show. I mean, like at this level, it's a moment. It's just a one quick move, and it makes us love one player over the other, and it's what makes DRG like, and it's just like a legendary player. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, this guy's just so cool.
All right, so rounding off even the episode and thinking about the some of the finer points of Mech, how could we summarize how a Zerg player, our audience out there, if they're dealing with Mech, what to look out for? What are some of the top line points?
Okay, so big thing is scouting the natural, seeing those depots. That was kind of a running theme through this, is kind of seeing, this doesn't really tell you exactly what's happening, but lets you know that we're talking about 2 base versus 3 base, which is a great way to start. Of course, we want to get that Overlord in there, but just about every Terran now is going to make a Viking. It's going to happen. Sometimes it kind of cycles where they don't make Vikings, and we love them for that, but we really want to get those Ling Scouts, and that's really the difference between good Zergs and absolutely top Zergs. It's just like loads of difference. And off the back of that, it's the economy. If we have a great economy and there's no BCs terrorizing us, we can start thinking about some mutas. We can get some bling in there, and we can really do some damage. And I mean, everyone else knows what to do after that. I don't have to say anything. It's as natural as knowing your right from your left at that point. But really emphasizing though, if there's BCs on the map, we still gotta think about that Roach Bling Corruptor. Cover our bases. Economy's great, but Vita's not so great if we don't have that economy plus that air superiority, because those BCs are just so good versus light units, and they're so quick. So when they have any upgrades, they're just tearing it through like paper. And I mean, any Zerg who's ever played Hydras versus BCs kind of knows how that goes. It's the same story. So yeah, really just emphasizing looking at what they're playing and Zerg has a lot of cards to play. Reacting to what you're dealing with, seeing the situation. There's a lot of examples in these games, and that's why I actually really like these games for Mech as examples, because they're all very different, but they show different key parts that are really cool.
Cool, absolutely. I think that's a good roundup. And also, the last thing is, remember, there's too many BCs. Don't keep going mutas. Get them corruptors.
It's not gonna work.
It's not gonna work. That was my key takeaway. I was like,
Yeah.
don't double down on the mutas. Don't double down on the mutas. Get the corruptors. They'll save you. All right. Any other thoughts from you, Man, before we roll into the
I mean, I just want to reiterate too, like this was a great mix of games to look at because it was different styles from different perspectives, defensive, aggressive from both sides of the table there, and kind of allowed everybody that's watching at home to kind of see how you might be able to respond in so many different situations, because Terrans are going to be opening differently, and they'll still get to that mech stage. It's not going to be this clear-cut, always BC. It's not always going to be Hellions. It's not always going to be Banshees. You got to be ready for everything if you're the Zerg player. So I thought that was a good way to look at things here.
I like the idea of Zerg having optionality. One of the things that I was thinking was optionality of the mutas really giving that pathway between, tackling the mech versus if they're going to go bio, you can still kind of transition. So that's something I also took away. Was really good. Panda Mimi, thank you so much for being on the show. I really hope I'm going to totally get you again because that was so knowledgeable and so insightful. What are you doing these days? Where can people find you? What's like if people want to get more Panda Bear Me all the time, what's the 24-hour channel?
Oh man, I'm a little gremlin. I'm not really doing a lot right now. Twitter's always good. Panda Bear Me, SE2. I have a YouTube channel, Panda Bear Me. I've kind of recently started doing I want to do kind of video essay type stuff. I did a little video on AoE4, kind of the beginning, the very first tournament, all these different players coming from different RTS and kind of what that amounted to. And it was just a really interesting situation to me. And I also want to make StarCraft videos. I kind of have some plans for that, about different players at very specific times, how that was interesting to me, or just maybe a tournament. So that's kind of my interest in these days, is just capturing these kind of historical moments of just things that I think are really important, I suppose, and just trying to summarize that and maybe introduce that to new people that didn't know about it before. But that's really the only two places these days. Streaming isn't as much my forte, but YouTube is kind of the home for me on that. I think it's just Panda Bear Me. Yeah.
Don't worry, everybody. We'll link that in the description. You can get enough of that. And don't worry, we'll also link Landman. So don't worry, Landman. You don't have to give us the full thing. I know where you are. They know where you are. They'll find you. There's no escaping us. Thanks for the rest of you, though, who've watched. Hopefully, we've imparted you with some great knowledge of all you Zerg players and how to take care of mech. If you have suggestions for different topics, different matchups, leave us in the comments so that we know where to kind of take the show. Those of you who are patron supporters, you guys can also give that extra boost on where you want us to go. Let us know topics that you'd like us to explore and guests you might want me to bring on. So feedback is always welcome. Look forward to the next time you've been here on Ranked. Bye, everybody. Just waving, say bye.
Bye.